Welcome back to another episode of the Divorce Couch. My name is Claire and I'm a divorce coach in the north of Ireland.
Hi, and my name is Simone and I'm a divorce coach based in Germany.
And as you can see this morning, it's just the two of us that you have for company on the sofa when you have your coffee. Our dear friend Salma is just in the middle of something as life happens to all of us at different stages, and I stepped out in the summer for different reasons. So we're just giving her space to be where she needs to be, and we are going to continue this because we know how important it is for those of you that listen. So today we would love to talk again about holidays. Holidays are such an emotive thing in life across the board, whether it is you're a child and it's birthdays and it's Christmas and there's excitement, then you get married and you create your own traditions or not, or whatever way you decide to do it. I know when I got married, I was very clear that I didn't feel I had traditions growing up and I wanted to put them in. So there were lots of things we put in, getting a real tree, putting on Christmas music and having mulled wine when we decorated the tree, lots of things. So over the years, they became important. And then you hit the rough ride of a divorce and suddenly holidays change. The memories of the things that you're going to create this year for this holiday are not going to be the ones of the dream that you had before. There is the emotional upset that your life is maybe not where you wanted it to be, but it is where you are now. And if you have children, there's another impact. How do you split children between two parents? How do you decide what's best? How do you navigate creating traditions that your children will remember in a way that is going to be good and positive? So we have Christmas, we have Hanukkah, we have New Year. These are the ones that are coming up now, and they're big. They're big in all of our cultures, regardless of what it is that you put your emphasis on. And we just wanted to come back today, and we've done an episode on this before, but it's such an emotive topic and it's such a real issue that we both felt this is something we want to talk about again. So we're going to open it up and we're going to talk about how do you look at the idea of preparing for a holiday season? And if you could prepare a little bit, what might help you to get the best experience out of that season when you look back in the future? So if you go into mid-January and you look back and you think, that was pretty good. And so often in life, the investment of time and thought and energy makes such a difference to the outcome. So we want to give you things to think about today to see if we can help you to have a better experience.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this, Simone?
I wonder where we begin. Do we begin with the emotions? Do we begin with the planning? Do we begin with the anticipation? I think if we look at families with children or dogs or pets, whatever is dear to you that need to be now having a different tradition, this is maybe where I would begin. Is how could you possibly, it might even be something that you will discuss in your court order, right? When you split or when you divorce, how could you possibly set up for the holidays that will cater to the best outcome? What you just said, I love that. Basically, if you just weeks after the event, if you look back, what would you want the experience to be for yourself and for the child? So I don't know, maybe I begin how we've done it. We alternate, and I think we alternate in a way that is possible for the child to adjust. We don't alternate within a day because I could sense immediately that would take so much present time for the child away if they basically have to leave the family midway. So, but that was my decision, and my ex-husband went along. So it's rather about having the whole holiday alternating between him and I. So that was something, because it was more about what it's not the holidays is, if we have children, I don't think it's so much about us adults, even though it hurts, but I think, what do we want our children long term, if they look back as an adult, how do they want to remember the holidays? And it shouldn't be, in my opinion, to be one which is stressful. I had to adjust, I had to accommodate, and I cannot stress enough that we probably sometimes underestimate the message we are sending to the child if they basically, on such an important event, if they are with one parent and then they're transferring to the other parent midday, the other parent too is full of expectations and so of excitement. So the child needs to cater and basically fulfill the expectations of both sets of parents in one day. That's an awful lot of, I'm throwing out the word parentification on a child, because the child now needs to basically, it realizes everybody's excited, right? It's a new set of grandparents, it's a new set of parents, and they're all excited. Hey, how are you? I'm so excited. I've prepared this amazing dinner. I've prepared this amazing, I know in the UK it's so important to have these big Christmas the dinners. Is that what you call it? The one with
Christmas dinner, everybody then
million dishes.
Yeah.
So imagine the child to know, you know, in order to make this work, I also want to, you know, make you happy. So they make the parents happy twice.
See, I'm laughing because
Why?
my children, we split Christmas Day. So I'm laughing because here we are, two divorce coaches with two completely different
mindsets.
Well, not even mindsets, but just approaches to it.
Yeah.
And some of it depends on the circumstances and the geography and the everything else. And I absolutely hear what you're saying. And it's raising some questions within me, actually, of, oh my God, what have I put my children through? It's the first thing I thought of. But it's just interesting to listen to the reasons behind somebody else. So I have a question for you.
Sure.
How did you prepare for your first Christmas when your kids were with their dad and you weren't going to have them? How did you prepare for that? Because this episode and what we do is, yes, it's about the kids, but it's about the divorced parent and how, because if a divorced parent is okay, your children are okay because you're okay.
Yes.
So how did you help yourself to be okay that first Christmas that you didn't have your children with you? Because I don't think it's possible to underestimate how enormous that is.
Yeah. So I am pretty sure, I don't remember. I wonder whether did family come? Was I with my mother? Did my mother, because it was in Singapore, right? And I don't remember, but I think I was aware enough that if I was alone, that would hurt me. I think you know what, that's such a good question, but I'm pretty sure I surrounded myself with friends. And that's exactly what we want or what we are not teaching, but we're giving our clients, that this anticipation of the loneliness, the heart that's pulling, right, because of what was. And I think Christmas to me is one of these events. I grew up with Christmas being totally stressful. And that was one of these things, is I never want my children to experience Christmas.
No, in some ways, yeah.
as stressed. So Christmas and birthdays, I focus a lot on. And then now to not, in the past, not being able to now influence it in a way or control it, because you know what, they're now with the other parent, I knew it would hurt.
Well, can I pick up something that I've just realized with you? You obviously prepared well, because it's not imprinted on your brain how awful it was. You were saying, I can't really remember. That's a good sign, because that means it wasn't a terrible experience.
Yeah, it did hurt.
Of course it would have, but it's not something that's to the forefront of, oh, I'll never forget how awful that was. Yeah. And some of that is giving your children the gift of not being split. So the understanding going into a holiday. So this is something that I think for you, anybody listening, is what is important to you coming into a holiday? Is it important? I mean, for me, it was important that I saw my children on Christmas morning. I am a Christmas person. I will hold my hands up. I love Christmas, not in November, but in December. And what I was thinking was, if the boys were with their dad, I would want to be part of Christmas in some way. And I wanted to afford him the same thing that I would have wanted, even though it wasn't necessarily the easiest, and all sorts of different things. And this is where you sort of step back a little bit. But I think the idea of thinking about what is important to you. Is it important that you is it important that you don't see your ex over Christmas? Because if that's important to you, well, then the children going one place or the other is a good idea, because then you don't have to interact with your ex on Christmas Day. So
Oh,
what are the
you mean if you were consider whether or not to share this event? And I think you've done that, right? Was it a birthday where you do share? Is that what you mean? So basically you're together.
No, what I mean is if things are quite acrimonious with your ex and you don't want to see your ex on Christmas Day, well, then sharing the day and splitting the holidays on over like Christmas Eve or Christmas might cause upset. So maybe in that circumstance, as a parent, you might decide, actually, maybe it would be better to keep me more grounded, that the children go to their dad for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day one year, and then back to me the following year. Absolutely. And do what you do. So it is what are the things coming up to a holiday that are going to cause you to be triggered and upset, and how you remove those? What is the best possible circumstance to allow you to be as grounded as you can, to have the best experience for you? And in my case, I chose to put the children's, what I felt was important for the children and my needs of so what we do is the children have Christmas Eve in one house. The following morning, the other parent will come to that house. So this year the boys are with me for Christmas Eve. Peter will come in the morning and we will do the Santa presents. And then they will go to him later on when they've had a chance to play with their toys, and I'll get them all packed up and stuff. And then they'll stay with their dad for 2 or 3 days where all their presents go over with them.
Yeah.
And that works for us. I mean, my kids still aren't, they're not adults, so it's different, but that works for us. And then what I do in advance is I think, well, what am I going to do on Christmas Day? So this year I haven't planned my Christmas Day, but I know that whatever I decide to do, and maybe it's going to be stay at home, because what I do is I will have my Christmas dinner one of the days of Christmas week before Christmas. I will do the crackers, we will do all sorts of different things, and I will have a full Christmas dinner a few days before Christmas. So by the time I get to Christmas Day, I've done my Christmas. I've done my Christmas experience with the children. It just wasn't on the 25th of December. And I have them on Christmas Eve, which I love. I'm a Christmas Eve person, like through and through. I love Christmas Eve. And so I get to Christmas morning and I think it doesn't really matter what I do, because I have what I need, which is my memories, and I've created the experience within my world for my children. And then they'll go and have another Christmas dinner on Christmas Day with their dad. But I had to think about that and think, if they're not with me on Christmas Day, what do I do about that? And I thought, I'll recreate it. I'll just do it on a different day. And we do this with birthdays sometimes, and we do it with other, Mother's Day sometimes, whatever it happens to be. So again, before you get to an event, thinking, what if we decide on what's going to work, how do we make it happen that it's going to be something that my experience as a parent is still going to be good when I look back on it? And how can you create it?
Yeah. And I am adding, ask yourself, what is it costing me if I remain in it should be this way?
Yes.
Because
that's a very good question.
You have, the split is there. So the status quo is a new one. And if I remain stuck in, but it has to be, and this is when we go into negotiation with all topics. But if I can only stay in this or that, black or white, it's going to cost this system something, because somebody in the system, if I basically just really push through, it's only going to be this way because it was always this way. And the other person then, for whatever reason, is giving in. It's going to, Terry Real calls it basically that we are living in a biosphere. It's a biosphere. So basically somebody in really pushing only the one way is poisoning the biosphere. And if you poison the biosphere, the other person, and it might be the children, they're going to breathe it in. And that is a huge cost on the biosphere of the family. So I like you have done exactly the same thing. And I don't know where I learned this, but sometimes and even marriages, I mean, this is such a big topic. We grow up and if we really ask ourselves, there's an awful lot of belief systems, how things are supposed to be, right? What if I marry, the other person is supposed to be there for me and complete me and take over me. And it's very Disney. And it's the same with Christmas. It's only got to be on the 24th or on the 25th, but this is within our Christianity. You know what? Other people have a different holidays and they celebrate it on a different day, and it's about coming together. So if we go one level up more into Bert's perspective and say, okay, well, what is this holiday about? If it is not so much about the religious part, but it's about celebrating the coming together to celebrate connection, then it must be possible, because of the change of the status quo, like what you did and what I did, to then choose another day. And the beauty about that is it keeps you as the parent, as the adult, in power. You're not being the victim because something has been taken away. And we're teaching our children,
I love that,
adjustment to change looks like. Are we telling our viewers that it is not going to be devastating and you feel hurt because an expectation is no longer what it was meant to be or what you probably thought going into this marriage? And that's then what you mentioned is, if I ask myself, how am I going to go through this pain? Then it's amazing to have somebody by your side to talk to and say, you know what, it's really painful. And I love the change in the growing of me. It's no longer, for me, it's no longer an either or, it's an and. Things are changing.
That's very powerful.
And I am hurting. And I accept.
And that's recognizing, isn't it? You know, that's validating and recognizing that, no, this is not easy, but it can be a better experience in the fact that it's not easy. And what you were talking about, I mean, we've done episodes on this before, the idea of flexible mindset. And if we are able to be flexible within ourselves, and like a tree in the wind, it bends. If we can be flexible, we have a feeling of flow and that sense of control. And I loved what you said, when it's not that something has been taken away, it's that we can recreate something new. It's the possibility of what is possible. If this isn't going to be here, if the thing that I had wanted isn't going to be here, what is possible? And also, you know, on that theme, one of the things, I think as humans, we default into rose tinted glasses. And it was so wonderful. And was it really wonderful? Like, really, was it? How many people do you and I know, including ourselves, that I mean, I loved Christmas, still do, but was it always wonderful? Not really.
No.
Because we set ourselves up, and then we have families and we have humans and we have people and we have all sorts of stuff. And no, we're running late. We haven't got the gifts. It's not always wonderful. But when we get to a situation where it is changed, we default into thinking how wonderful it was. And that increases the gap of disappointment. And maybe sometimes it's not a bad thing to think about, well, maybe it wasn't that wonderful. And what didn't work about it? And what can I put into my world that's important to me that I couldn't do then, that now as a single person I can do now? And if you're listening to this and you don't have children, there's a different dynamic around that, because suddenly there's an emptiness that you don't need to think of other people in the same way that as a parent with children you do. And there is this sense of, well, what am I going to do? I'm on my own. And a lot of people presume that somebody's been invited to somebody else's home. If you don't have family, I mean, I didn't live near family. And people presume, and a lot of my friends would have said, so what are you doing for Christmas? As opposed to, have you got any plans? Would you like to come to my house?
Oh, I love that. To reach out. Both need to be active, right? The one who's asking and the one who is on their own. This is now about becoming proactive, because it's a topic. It's very thin ice, right? I think, you know what, because it's so aligned with emotions, I, as the friend, need to allow that my friend might be very sad with their answer. And I need to hold space for that, right? If you ask, you might as well also ask them, do you want to come to mine? Or, hey, come on here. Can I give you a hug? Is there anything I can do for you? You could come to mine, or I don't know what. And then there are support groups. right? You're not I mean, we have such high rates of divorce. There are groups that provide space. I remember that in Singapore, that these single parents came together. If the other parent was in charge. Can you just quickly add something you just said that really was beautiful? Remember when you talked about the tree?
Yes.
A tree is rooted. At the same time, I immediately remember the client of mine who feels like a cloud going back and forth and feels totally detached. And that's the same image. It's something going, it's swaying, but one is basically rooted.
Yes, I hear you.
And the other isn't. And that is powerful. You know what? How do you find, and this is probably where we as coaches can come and help, is how do you find rootedness? Is that a word even?
Yes, rootedness and groundedness. And what I actually phrase that now is connection with yourself, because I think the roots of a tree are its connection with the system that allows it to grow and be stable. And in order to grow and be stable as a human, we need to be connected with ourselves. So we talk about connection as in being connected to your partner and connected to your kids and but the most important relationship, and Gabor Mate talks about this an awful lot, the most important relationship is being connected to ourselves, affording compassion to ourselves, affording love and care and self-care, which is not selfish, to ourselves. So if you're coming into a holiday season, I would be thinking, could you ask yourself, what might I like, or what might I need that would help me to feel like I matter, like I'm important? That might be spending a lot of money on some expensive bubble bath. It might be buying a nice candle. It might be organizing to go out for dinner with friends. And it does take that proactiveness to do this. And that is where you mentioned earlier, we step out of being a victim. This is awful. This has happened to me. This isn't what I wanted. That place, that sort of podium, it doesn't allow for expansion, and it doesn't allow for possibility. If you can step out of that and into this side and go, I don't like being here. So you're validating it. So I don't like being here. But now that I am here, what am I going to choose to do about it? Okay. What am I going to put into my world to help with that? Yes, go on.
Can we just focus right there at this particular moment? When you realize, oh God, I mean, it has a lot to do with awareness. Okay. It's the point. So what would you as a coach recommend I do as your client to acknowledge the vulnerability of this moment and wanting cognitively, I want to go into, let's say, radical acceptance. But what do you do to kind of stay in this end? So basically, I do feel vulnerable and in pain. I have made the decision I don't want to become a victim. So what tools do you as a coach have in your toolbox that you would give your clients to handle that? So
that's a very good question.
Yeah.
And I think journaling is something that I love, because when the empowerment around journaling is when we start to write, our thinking brain gets out of the way. And as we write a little bit more thoughts come, and you think, oh, I've forgotten about that. Or, oh, that's important. And we can find ourselves writing about something at the end of doing some journaling that we didn't intend to write on at the beginning. But it's because we give our brain space. And when I journal, I put on sleep music for meditation or something that doesn't have words. I like to have distraction. And it allows me to think about things in a way that feels safe, because it's just me, a pen and a piece of paper. There's nobody going to judge that unless I do it myself, which I have done a lot of in the past. But that is one way that I would suggest is a good idea, to go write it down. Because when we write things down, we get it out of our heads. Write down, this isn't where I want to be. This is awful. This hurts really badly. This is, and then when you get to the end of the words that you're feeling and the emotions, a good question to ask yourself then is, what might I like to feel? What might you like to feel? Might you like to feel happier? Might you like to feel a bit of calm? Might you like to feel safe? And then out of those, the answers to those questions, how might you help yourself to put some of those feelings into your world? So when we ask our brain a question, our brain goes and finds the answers. And so often we just don't change the question. So we go, this is awful, isn't it? And there's the question. And of course, you'll find 101 reasons why this is awful. But if you said, how might I feel a little bit safer or a little bit more loved in a way that I can give it to myself? Well, then your brain could go, well, you could meet a friend for coffee, or you could actually light a fire at 12 o'clock in the day and have a duvet day watching a Christmas movie just because you can. And I would feel safer. So you start to find options and possibilities that you hadn't thought of when you were in the emotions of this is awful.
Yeah.
But I think when we don't acknowledge the emotions, what happens is it's like we stuff them down into a suitcase and we create a barrier that feels heavy. When we allow them space to breathe, we allow the sense of possibility.
Yeah.
And it's that concept in life. If you're clearing out a house, if you want new furniture, you need to clear out the old, create the space. So allowing our emotions to be valid and real, it doesn't matter what they are. No. Who am I to tell you what you should feel or could feel? It's just saying, this is where I am. And then you have the possibility to go, now that I've talked about that, it doesn't take them away, but it will definitely reduce the strength of the feeling within you of those emotions and allow space for some possibilities.
And listening to you, I agree. That's exactly what I would probably explore with my clients. And there is something, if we are going back to you're a parent, this was basically such great ideas for everyone. If you have children, if this is going on for you, 1000% this is going on for your child as well. Absolutely. So I think it is very important now to acknowledge, and I think sometimes, and I've been doing that because I feel if I don't talk about it, maybe then my kids won't experience that. And no, of course that's not right. Of course they've experienced that. The vulnerability and potentially the pain and the not knowing, but because they're the children, I have now learned how important it is to give them an outlet, and then we can talk, and then we can also admit, I feel the same. I am also hurting that things are changing. Let's have a look how you are feeling, how you are about this different setup and how it is, and also giving them the permission to feel the way and to feel happy at the other place. For example, this Christmas, my children are going to a very exotic place, very exotic. And I think immediately I could see that my children were trying to protect me by not being happy about this. And luckily I was aware of what was happening, and I immediately approached them and I said, of course you should be happy. I want you to be happy to be having such an amazing opportunity. So going back to the end, and we can say, you know what? Yeah, I would have wanted, in the best case scenario, we do this together, and it's not happening, which doesn't mean you shouldn't be incredibly happy for the opportunity that you're being given. So I think that's important, to give our children the gift. I know this is something that you would say, I'm citing giving the gift of using this situation, of going into a dialogue and say, you know what, if I feel like this, could it be that you were too? And I think that's an amazing gift for our future adults, to say, you know what, there's change in life all the time. And this is one of them. Let's talk about how it feels.
Yeah. And that teaches our children that, you know, change doesn't have to be something we're really scared of. It's a process, and life is a process. And, you know, when we come back to the sort of topic of holidays and preparation, I hope that people listening, I hope that any of you listening have got some ideas of things you can think about to prepare for beforehand. What is important to you? Is it important that you don't see your ex over the few days? Or is that not really, that's not something that's going to rock your world? So you could make it happen. If you know, one of the things I did was I quite a lot at the beginning said to my ex, what do you want? What are your plans? And then he might have said something and I would think, oh, that hasn't really worked, because I didn't know how to have a voice and say, this is what would work for me. So thinking about the question, in an ideal world, with the circumstances you have now, what would you love most to happen? What would bring your heart joy over the holidays? And then use that as a starting point. We all have to negotiate. When you're on a divorce journey, there's a lot of negotiation, a lot of flexibility, and a lot of compromise. What are the things that you would like to have, and or is there anything that you don't really want to compromise on? If you don't know what those things are because you haven't thought about it, then going into a dialogue with an ex-partner who has a different agenda is going to be more difficult. So thinking beforehand, what's important to me? What do I really, really, really want? That if I could only have one thing, this is the thing I really, really want. It gets you to a place where you have a much better opportunity and possibility of having that in your world. And if you don't have children, what are you going to do with the time? Because if you don't fill the time by proactively putting something in to go to be with family or to go away on a holiday or to do something, your experience looking back on that holiday will be of loneliness and of disconnection and of upset. And those things may still be in your world, but they don't have to be the dominating thing that defines that Christmas or that New Year. New Year is a big thing for a lot of people going into a new year when last year they were married. This year they're not. Lots of things. And yet preparation, I mean, we prepare for a marriage. We prepare for exams. We prepare for everything. Why do we not prepare for something that is so full of emotion? And that's what we really want to bring is how can you prepare to give yourself the best experience out of the holidays that are coming up and in future holidays. These questions and ideas and concepts can go into any holiday, Easter, birthdays, anything.
Yeah, I think you're looking at the time. I guess you're going to do your wrap up soon. If there's only one thing I would probably add to this, because you just asked this wonderful question, why don't we? We're in a world where we don't give space for those feelings that we put in a cluster of not so good, right? I don't want this to feel. So we have another gift here. We all know that feelings, it's a binary thing, right? There's not good without bad. There is not happiness without sadness. Mm-hmm. So this is also a gift of becoming wholesome with all of your array of feelings that we are given. So I love the anticipation of it will be sad. And I acknowledge that it will be sad. And then all those beautiful things that you just said, how do I want to work around? No, not around it, with it. You know what? Knowing what's going to come, I'm going to work with that in order to make it work for me. So yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah. Right. And maybe you need support for that. And yes. Support can look like a friend. Support can look like a family member. Support can look like a divorce coach. Support can look like a counselor, a therapist. What support do you need to help you to navigate the emotions that are going on before you get to this next holiday? Because that is worth investing in. Because what you find you will learn is more about you and more about what's important to you. And more about how to incorporate the things that are not the way you would have wanted them into a way that allows you to move forward without it defining you. And we would so encourage you to not let the negative experiences be a defining factor in an upcoming holidays. Invest in the time in whatever way it looks for you, because we're all different.
Yeah.
Find the way to go through this, that you will come out and by mid-January you will look back and go, there are moments that were really wonderful because you feel them.
Yeah.
In a circumstance that you didn't think it would be possible.
Mm. I just thought, just in case it's not working, there are helplines. I know there must be in the UK. So if you yourself at a point where you think, yeah, I listened to Claire and Simone and that sounds fun. And you know what, I can do this. And then all of a sudden you realize, but it's not. You know what? Reach out. I think this is one of my biggest things that I want to bring out to the world. Ask for help. You know what? There are hotlines that you can call, and they will be by your side. Especially,
and that's the same thing, isn't it? That is acknowledging out loud that these emotions are just too much for you, and they're not positive emotions, and that feeling of being stuck. When we keep something in and in the dark and inside, it has space to grow, and that's not going to help you.
Yes.
So absolutely reach out to whoever and whatever is going to help you to be able to get into the next day in a better way than you're doing it today.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you very much for listening. It's been lovely to have you with us, and we look forward to you joining us again on the couch. We would love you to like, share, and subscribe, and pass this to anyone that you know that's coming up to a holiday in a circumstance on a divorce journey, because we all know people where their world has changed beyond what they would have wanted it. Thank you very much. Bye.
Goodbye.